All right, good evening, everyone. I've got 6:30. I'm Mayor Tome here to call this meeting to order for the Columbus Common Council. This is our regular meeting. It's Tuesday, September 1st, 2020. Again, we're utilizing Zoom video conference. We have the full council present, and Ian Gray is excused this evening, and we have Attorney Johnson joining us via Zoom. With that, could you please take a roll call for us when you're ready, Pat?
Adams.
Present.
Gray is excused. McCabe.
Here.
Piperone.
Present.
Reed.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Tome.
Here. Thank you. If able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Right, this meeting has been noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. The next item we have is to approve the agenda for the evening. It's fairly short, but if there's any alterations or deletions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Alder Pipe will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Adam seconds.
All right, we got a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion on the motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is approved. Correspondence and communications, we didn't have anyone signed up in person, and Administrator Ellison said that there was no one signed up on email for Zoom correspondence or communications this evening either. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda, which is applications for operators licenses for the term of July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2022. There was an additional name submitted by the clerk that should have been left at your desks. The names on the list, we have 5 names, are Hunter Brond, Dasha Prozek Zickert, Janelle Saddak, Lynn Timmerman, and then the addition of Caitlin Vest. Are there any questions on the operators licenses? If there are none, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Alder Ryan, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Alder Pipe will second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to new business item number 1, which is consider and take action on the wastewater treatment plant influent pump replacement. This is on the agenda because it was at the committee of the whole, was reviewed by the council. I don't believe there were many questions on this. The recommendation from our city engineer, Rupert Milkey, is to accept the bid of August Winter's bid for the project in the amount of $197,900. This was the low bid, and the contractor, I believe, has completed work for us in the past. Jason signifying that's correct. This would be funded through the wastewater treatment plant capital projects fund, so it is budgeted. Any questions from the council on this? We have Jason here if there are any additional questions. This would be to remove 3 influent pumps and replace it with 1 variable frequency drive and piping modifications are part of this, but I believe it's an increased capacity pump that's going to be add more performance and efficiency. So good news for the wastewater treatment plant. If there's no more questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the bid for the August Winters for $197,000.
I make a motion to approve August Winter's bid for the influent pump replacement project in the amount of $197,900.
Reed seconds.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation of the August Winter's bid for the influent pump replacement project and the amount read. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no further discussion, Pat, could you please take a roll call for us?
Adams.
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye.
Piperone.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. On to new business item number 2 then. Consider and take action on trick or treat date and time for the city of Columbus. Again, this is on our agenda because it was reviewed at the last committee of the whole meeting. I believe the consensus we had at the committee of the whole is that we would have trick or treating hours available on October 31st, which is October 31st, which is a Saturday this year. I'm sorry, I can't see very good with my glasses off. Yes, October 31st, which is a Saturday, but we did recommend adjusting the hours to 4 to 7 p.m. Does that sound correct? All right. Amy Jo is here if there's any additional questions or concerns. I know that staff will continue to be discussing recommendations for trick-or-treating, and with pretty much everything these days, the uncertainty of COVID-19, it's impossible to determine at this time what, if any, restrictions or guidance local, state, or federal officials may provide related to community-wide door-to-door events like trick-or-treating between now and that date. So unless there's any other questions from the council, entertain any action on new business item number 2.
Reed will motion to set Columbus Trick or Treat for October 31st from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Adams seconds.
All right, we have a motion and a second to set trick-or-treating hours for October 31st from 4 to 7 p.m. Is there any discussion on the motion? There's no discussion on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Stay tuned for updates on that. All right, new business item number 3, consider and take action on the leak detection at the Aquatic Center. This, again, is on the agenda because it was reviewed at the last committee of the whole. We did get a lot of information because we have 2 agenda items somewhat closely related, so there are bids from similar vendors, etc. I believe we came to the consensus at the last meeting that we wanted to expend budgeted money in the amount of, I think it was $5,900 with Newman Pools to investigate any other possible leaks at the pool before reopening next year. There is some updated information which I did not find and had to make a few phone calls today, but it's on the back of the Newman Pools contract, which is the second contract in the packet, and on the back page it has some answers to the questions that we were asking at the last committee of the whole meeting. Newman Pool previous work to determine a leak. It states that all pipes were pressure tested at the pool with the exception of the pipe to the body slide and the vortex slide. All activity pipes were tested and found the blue arch, which is the feature that's leaking, had a leak in the vertical pipe. Determined that the 4-inch and 12-inch pipes had small leaks, and those pipes were cut and plumbed, and then the pipes repaired were re-pressure tested, and the fixes held the pressure. So below that, it kind of outlines the continued leak detection. It looks like they have a new leak detection system called the Leakalizer, which sounds very intriguing, but it sounds like that's the tool that they're going to use to come back in and find out if there's any remaining leaks in the pool. So I don't know if pressure testing is included in that as well, Amy Jo? It is. Are they going to be looking at the gutter system as well? Sure. Thank you. There you go.
Okay. Hello. So after talking further with Chris Newman and Mark from Newman Pools, they don't believe that it's in the gutter system. They rambled off a bunch of reasons why. So I'm going to kind of take them up on that. But the Leakalizer, what it is, it's like a microphone that's attached to a magnet that they actually throw in, and they can drag it across the bottom of the pool and in the gutter system, and they can hear the static versus the water pressure. And that's how they determine where a leak is. It's a new system that they invested in.
Okay.
They're pretty confident that they're going to find it.
Okay.
So fingers crossed. But if it falls within the budget, I would like the gutter system explored if we could, but they seem to think it's not there.
Okay. Any questions for Amy Jo while she's out?
Are they going to do like an as-built, like mark off what pipes that they pressurize and everything, or they check?
Yeah,
So they go
are you
through-
asking if on the plans?
Yeah, because it seemed to be one of the things that we were talking about last time, how they have to go through and check every pipe and actually make a note of it, that they do.
We've
check
done
it.
that already. Everything that they've done already, we've marked on our
Okay.
plans that we have.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Amy Jo?
Good question.
I see none. Believe the amount for the Newman contract then was $5,900, which is a time and material contract. I would suggest that if we do approve it, we just say not to exceed $5,900. I certainly hope that they can detect any
hope so.
issues there, and if not, then we move forward after that, so.
Okay.
If there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the contract with Newman Pools for the leak detection at the Aquatic Center.
Adams moves to approve the pool leak detection from Newman Pools, Inc. for $5,900, not to exceed $5,900.
Thank you.
Ryan, second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the contract with
Thank you.
Newman to continue the leak detection at the Aquatic Center not to exceed $5,900. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, could we please take a roll call, Pat?
Gray? I'm sorry, he's not here. McCabe?
Aye.
Pifferone?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Adams?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Move on to item number 4. Amy Jo is still up here. This is kind of a companion to the last item, which is to consider and take action on the water attraction repair, which we discussed at the last committee of the whole meeting. I did call Amy Jo today because when I was going through the packet, I was a little confused after the conversation we had last time. And if we look at the Musson Brothers Incorporated proposal, which I believe we had some consensus to go with the lining of the pipe, I believe my understanding at the meeting was that they were going to do the entirety of the pipe, which is 67 feet, but this contract states that they're only going to be doing a 2-foot patch repair where the crack is.
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure that the council was aware of that.
Oh, yeah, and I did put that in my notes, because after reading it closer, my apologies, I noticed that it was just the 24-inch repair patch.
Yeah, and then there's a follow-up on the back of that contract with the questions that we had asked at the last meeting as well about the material that they use, the thickness. It does come with a 5-year warranty. It sounds like they are planning on televising the entirety of that line, though, to make sure they don't identify any other cracks in there. And if they did find any, then they would report that back to us to see if they could repair that at the same time, so.
After our conversation today, I did call Sam Husen from Husen Brothers and told him I had concerns that it was just the 2-inch. And he said basically, I looked it up, it says most of their cost is built in their setup, the system that they have, which is really labor rates, and a little bit is the repair. I told him we had concerns with just that little section. He said what they could do is slip line that entire pipe, the rounded elbow, and then 10 feet in. He said we would actually slip line it with the fiberglass material and then put, let me get this right, a bladder throughout the pipe to blow in another line. And they would televise it and pressurize it. He said that would not exceed $2,000. He can guarantee that. Because I told him our concerns, it's kind of a hard pill to swallow for a 2-inch fix,
2 foot.
2-foot fix.
2 inches would be even harder, yeah.
Yeah. So a 2-foot section, and he understood what we were saying, but he said realistically, once they're there, most of the labor is in setting up and taking down. So,
I'm not not an expert or a plumber, but I saw the pipe that is cracked, and my concern is that if it's cracked on the vertical, you'd assume that there's water on the horizontal, and as long as we know there's no cracks below that, that's just my assumption.
We did have D&D camera out there, and they did televise the entire pipe, and we did not see anything at the time. It doesn't mean that there isn't anything already there.
But they would pressure test this pipe after it is repaired, correct?
Correct.
Then we would know that it's going to work, so. Just wanted to bring that up. Go ahead, Trina.
Oh, no, I was just wondering what the preference is, if it's the 2-foot repair versus the dig out and complete reconstruction for a similar amount, if it's just going to be that small size.
It's a lot less labor intensive. We don't have the true plans for the aquatic center, so saying that we were cutting out a 3-foot by 3-foot or a 5-foot by 5-foot section, we may hit a pipe that we don't know is really there. We don't have the as-built plans, so that would just be another pipe that we have to repair and cut back. So I think this is the safest thing to do. I think it's the smartest thing to do at this point because we don't really have the plans. And then we talked about the option, we could abandon it as well, but I don't like that idea because if the next one breaks, are we just going to keep taking them away? But that's an option as well. It's $1,000 to abandon it, and then you have to have Water Technologies write up plans to show that to the state that it's gone.
So is Musson now offering to put the fiberglass through the entire length for 2,000 more? Was that what you were
The
saying?
entire vertical pipe, the 90-degree elbow, and then 10 feet into the horizontal part. So it's like down and over.
So are you asking for up to 2,000 more for approval?
I'm asking for some guidance for it to not to exceed $2,000 more, so in a way, yes.
Yeah, that's just what I was wondering, is okay, if the setup is that much money, does it make sense to have that much more approved on the front end?
We wouldn't want them to have to come back again because it would probably cost, another 2 feet would cost $7,000 is my assumption. Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Anybody else?
I guess I just have a question about the 5-year warranty. Obviously, that would have to do with that same specific crack reopening. I guess, so you said the crack is on a vertical,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So would that also cover if that vertical crack spreads in either direction outside of the patch?
I'm not going to say I would
Right,
assume so because I
so-
didn't ask that question.
Yeah, I don't know if it makes sense to, I guess that's my main concern. If, hopefully there's nothing else there, there's no other additional cracks. It sounds like you guys didn't see any, but I guess my only concern is that spreading outside of that. But,
Well, the crack that is there is just under 18 inches. So the 24-inch would cover that, but I don't know if it would go beyond that, if that would still be covered under warranty. I don't know that.
Pete?
Good question to ask.
So covering the vertical and then going 10 foot over, I would think that would pretty much cover up that one crack that you saw and taking care of whatever's in there. For an extra $2,000, I think it makes sense just to get there and be done with it. And then you don't run into that issue where if the vertical crack keeps going down, you already have it sealed.
The way I'm understanding it, it would be the 24-inch patch, then they would put the bladder in there, and then from the top all the way out would be in another liner. So it's like really kind of like two Band-Aids on that one area. One's thicker than the other.
Yeah, I would, my own personal view is get it in, get her done.
I think it's, if they're going to be there, if they're going to give us a 5-year warranty, I'm assuming that the warranty is on their product, and we can get a warranty on 2 feet of their product or 16 feet of their product. I think for $2,000, it's cheap insurance, because I have the same concern you do, Katie, is they may fix that one crack, but I don't know why it started cracking. Is it something that shifted the pool? Is it frozen water? I don't know that, but I think by having that whole section lined, we know we've got 5 years of, solid piping there, so. Anybody else have any opinion on that? I don't know the correct way to make a motion for this, because I guess we've got a contract in front of us for nearly $7,000. Maybe what we could do is approve the contract not to exceed $9,000 if they're giving us a verbal estimate of an additional $2,000. That would allow them to get a contract back to us with those specs on it, and we could move forward, because I know we want to get this work done so we can get Mid-America in to do the pool relining and all the expansion joints as soon as possible. So. Will that work, Kyle, in your opinion?
I think that would work. It covers you, and if the motion included the additional cost to include the additional work that they proposed, I think that would give us direction.
Okay.
Paul has appeared and he's nodding.
Paul's shaking his head. I think we're good.
Okay.
He's not shaking his head this way.
back here. Yes, that would be fine.
Okay, thank you, Paul. It's that red glow, the wizard. I think that that gives us the most flexibility, I think, to kind of just keep this thing moving forward and try to get the repairs done this fall. So, would someone like to make that motion? Unless there's any other questions for Amy Jo while she's up. I think, yeah, that's, yeah.
All right. I make a motion to award Moose and Brothers the contract for not exceeding $9,000 for the pool repairs.
Alder Piper will second that.
We have a motion and a second to award the contract for pool repairs to Moose and Brothers Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $9,000 to include additional work from the contract we have in our packet. Any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, Pat, could we please take a roll call on that?
McCabe. Aye. Piperone.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Adams.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you for the follow-up information, Amy Jo, and also for the council for coming up with a remedy on the spot. So, thank you. We'll move on to new business number 5 then, which is consider and take action on ordinance 755-20, an ordinance to create section 78-15 of the city code of ordinances requiring a site plan in certain circumstances and to repeal section 78-53 of the city code of ordinances. We have Matt Schreiber here. I think this is something that staff has been dealing with and the Plan Commission has been dealing with. But as it states in the memo, the staff has noted the city ordinance only identifies submission requirements for site plans under section 114-26. That section outlines the submittal requirements for conditional use permits. The site plan requirements for permitted uses are not clearly identified in our zoning code. To provide transparency, the site plan requirements should be identified in our zoning code, and that's what this ordinance accomplishes. The item was discussed at development team meeting, and City Attorney Johnson has created the draft ordinance for review, and the draft ordinance was reviewed by the Plan Commission multiple times, and they are recommending council approve the draft ordinance as we have it presented this evening. Are there any questions for Matt on this? Okay. If it is the will of the council to adopt the ordinance this evening, then we would have to suspend the rules, waive reading, and then make a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Alder Ryan, I make a motion to suspend the rules.
Alder Piper seconds that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The rules have been suspended. Next, we need a motion to waive the reading.
Alder Piper will make a motion to waive the reading.
Alder Ryan, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to waive the reading. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Reading has been waived, and then someone can make a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Alder Piper will make a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Adams, second.
755-20.
Adam seconds.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 755-20, an ordinance to create section 78-15 of the city code of ordinances requiring a site plan in certain circumstances and to repeal section 78-53 of the city code of ordinances. Is there any discussion on the motion? There's no additional discussion. Could we please take a roll call, Pat?
Piperone.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Adams.
Aye.
McCabe. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 6 then, which is one additional mayoral appointment. I received an online application from Louise Voss, who would like to be appointed to a vacancy on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. And glad to see an application coming in. If there's any questions, otherwise, take a motion to approve that appointment.
Alder Ryan, I'll make a motion to approve the mayoral appointment to the Recreation Advisory Board.
Alder Piper will second that.
All right, we have a motion, a second to appoint Louise Voss to the Recreation Advisory Board. Is there any discussion on the motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Move on to the city claims. Claims packet. Consider and take action on the claims in the amount of $467,254.63. Are there any questions on the claims? If there are none, I'll entertain a motion to approve in the amount read.
Alder Piper will make the motion to approve the claims in the amount read.
Adam seconds.
All right, we've got a motion and a second to approve the claims in the amount of $467,254.63. Any discussion on the motion? If none, Pat, could you please take a roll call for us?
Reed,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Adams,
Aye.
McCabe,
Aye.
Piperone.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. On to report of city officers. I'll turn it over to Kyle. Thank you.
All right, thank you. A couple notices to bring up. First, the assessment notices for properties have gone out to homeowners from Associated Appraisal. The open book is tomorrow from noon to 6, and it's conducted by telephone with the assessors. You can reach out to them with any questions. Oftentimes, if you work with them in the front end of the process, you can work out any disagreements or misunderstandings before it gets finalized. And then if you still have issues that you can't work out, the board of review process will be September 22nd from 6 to 8 p.m. And that's the more formal process where it's a formal appeal and sort of a quasi-judicial process. So if you have any questions, you can let me know and I can get you additional resources if you're getting questions from constituents. It's fairly complicated and there's a lot of different terms that get interchanged, unfortunately, and it gets confusing. So if you are getting questions, I would recommend pointing them to the official resources from Department of Revenue, pointing them to the assessor, and if you have questions, feel free to let me know and I'll get you whatever you need. Hibbert Street is still going on. That project has been going well. The sanitary sewer is just about 100% complete. They connected in Dick Street, so you probably saw the cut there, but that means that was kind of the completion of that portion as far as the sanitary sewer, and about a third of the water laterals are in, or water main, I should say, is in. For the homes that are having their laterals replaced, 6 out of the 20 homes have new sanitary services put into them, and 3 out of the 19 water laterals have been put in to date. Storm sewer could begin as soon as this week, so it continues to move along, and I think that's great. More road work. The slurry seal work is going to be Thursday and Friday, depending on the weather. There was an announcement put out on the Facebook, so if you have a chance to look at that, there is a map out there. But there'll be areas of South Lewis Street, Main Street, Richmond Street, Washington Street, Ridgeview, and Harrison. And depending on the time when they get to that area, again, weather depending, they will be shut down for a while so that the product can cure and set. So you'll see some sort of transient closures in those areas. And then crack sealing will be coming up in the next few weeks. So we'll have lots of road work going on here. The RFP process that we have for the statue that we talked about at the last meeting, we have not received any questions and we haven't received any submissions. The deadline is Friday. Also, the Department of Public Works Administrative Assistant interviews, we're doing those on Thursday, so hopefully we'll have a successful candidate and get someone scheduled to start and come on board. And then finally, some sort of bittersweet news. Public Works Director Zach Navin submitted his notice. He will be taking a position in Waukesha County, so we're obviously happy for Zach. That's great news for him, but it's certainly a loss for the city as well. So his last day will be September 25th, and in the meantime, we're going to be working on sort of getting the recruitment process going so that we can work on filling that critical position as soon as possible. So you'll see advertising for that position coming out very soon. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Kyle. A reminder to the City Council that we will be having a special committee of the whole meeting next Tuesday. Baker Tilly will be available via Zoom to assist us in the review of the annual city financial audits as well as the sewer utility audits. We'll also be discussing any final adjustments to the Roadmap 2050 recommendations before we prepare a resolution and bring that forward for final adoption. Today, Columbus area students officially began their school year. 2 of those students belong to me, and I'm very happy to report that they were actually excited to go to school this year. There's been a flurry of information coming from the school administration and staff in recent weeks to help families prepare for many of the changes due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Just a reminder that we all need to kind of keep our eyes open for kids in crosswalks now that school's active and open, and I know there's probably going to be some congested areas with the pickup and drop off and the differences in the busing and things like that this year, so it's going to take some time to adjust to this next school year, so please be patient. Also, submissions were due for the Name the Street Sweeper contest on August 24th, and the winning submission is, drum roll please. The winner is Kirby, C-U-R-B-Y. Very creative. The name was submitted by Paul Rubert. Paul will receive a $50 gift card to the Chamber of Commerce business of his choice and a ride in the street sweeper. So congratulations, Paul, and thanks to everyone that entered the contest, and thanks, Zach, for coming up with such a great idea and getting that out there. So I'll probably prepare a more lengthy speech for the next meeting, but I wanted to thank Zach for everything you've helped us with here in the city and your time here. It's been a very important time to have you here, I think, in the transition. So I'll speak more on that at the next meeting, but you'll be missed. Thanks for your time here. Unless there's anything else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Alder Pfeiffer will make a motion to adjourn.
Adam seconds.
And a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Stand adjourned for a few minutes and we'll return with the committee of the whole meeting. Thank you.
Hey, Kyle or Pat, can you send me a link for the closed session when the time comes? Thank you.
Okay, good evening and welcome to the Columbus Common Council Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, September 1st, 2020. The time is now 7:09 p.m. We are in Council City Hall chambers. We do have the full council except for Ian Gray is excused this evening. With that, when you're ready, Pat, could you please take the roll call for us?
Adams,
Present.
McCabe. Here. Piperone,
Present.
Reed,
Here.
Ryan,
Here.
Tome.
Here.
Okay, this meeting has been noticed with the proper state statutes and local ordinances. Next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda.
Alder Piperone will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Adams seconds.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is anybody opposed? Okay, the agenda's approved. This evening, Kyle and Pat, did we have anybody signed up in the meantime? So we have nobody signed up in-house for citizen comment, and we also did not receive any emails to participate in citizen comment via Zoom today. So we'll move on to number 5, which is a review of the committee minutes, the Cable Commission from July 1st, 2020, the Water and Light, Columbus Water and Light Commission from July 16th of 2020, Lifestar from July of 2020, the Recreation minutes from March 9th, June 8th, and July 13th of 2020, the CDA minutes from June 15th, the HLPC minutes from August 13th, the Plan Commission minutes from July 9th, and the tourism minutes from June 1st. Were there any questions, comments, or concerns with the committee minutes within the packet? Seeing none, we can move on then to number 6, which is review and discuss the city sidewalk policy. This evening we have Zach Naven with us once more. We're going to get good use out of him this evening before he makes his departure.
A few things to wrap up here before I leave. So in your packet, you'll see the memo regarding the defective sidewalk repair and replacement policy. When I first started with the city, this was brought up with some work with Safe Step, and there was some interest from council in repairing some sidewalks. We've spent a lot of that focus in my time in getting the city sidewalks that are owned by the city back up in shape, so that we, before we go asking the residents to repair their sidewalks, we can say we've done ours first and taken care of some of that. A little detail here, the city of Columbus has approximately 189,300 feet of sidewalk in the city, and a number of those sidewalks are failing due to long-term deferred maintenance. For the past 2 years, City Council has approved money in the budget for sidewalk work, and this has historically been used for grinding sidewalks where necessary. With no real plan in place for these budgeted funds, city staff researched sidewalk programs in other communities and how their programs could implement here in Columbus. Staff was able to come up with attached policy and procedures to address failing sidewalks throughout the city. That includes policy as to how defective sidewalks will be identified and repaired, procedures to notify residents and their options for repair and replacement, how costs for work will be covered, and a 5-year plan for the city to address all sidewalks. Some points for discussion in this policy include what sidewalks costs will be the city's responsibility versus the homeowners, a sidewalk maintenance map, and the borrowing percentage. Regarding the fiscal impact, the amount of deferred maintenance on sidewalks through the city means that there will be a fairly substantial fiscal impact to the city and its residents for the first 5 years of the proposed program, especially the first year as we work to finish repairing the city's own sidewalks. So I'll walk you through a little bit of this here. You'll see the policy in place. The first one I want to touch on is I put this plan together with 20% of the sidewalks being done every year, so that puts us on a 5-year plan. If this is a policy that the council is looking to move forward on, maybe it's something we kind of put on hold at the back burner for the next person to pick up and run with. But that puts us at, that's going to be a pretty substantial number for the first few years, as I said, because we've got a lot of the sidewalks that are bad are going to still have a cost to the city, with their slabs that are bad because of a city-owned tree, or different things of that nature, which is gonna come back on the city's expense. And one part for discussion would be the sidewalk ramps at the corners. There are municipalities that decide to cover that cost and call that a city cost, and there's other municipalities that say, nope, that's part of your sidewalk as the homeowner on the corner, and that's how that goes. That's something I just wanted to bring up as an option to council, if it's a discussion point or not. That'll be up to you. You'll see the 5-year plan there. That could obviously be changed into any amount of years we wanted. You just take that total 190,000 feet of sidewalk and divide it however we see fit. And with some help from Ruker and Milky, we can make it look real nice on a map here. The years that I put out here were kind of based on prior conversations wanting to start around the school, around the elementary and middle school. So that for year 1 would be the blue section. Year 2 would be, it's kind of tough to see here, but with the red, and then year 3 orange, and then going from there. The other talking point here was the interest rate on how we would borrow for this. So this would give residents an opportunity through the City of Columbus's current policies that they would have a repayment plan, the opportunity for repayment plan if they had work over or under $1,000, 5-year repayment, 10 years over 2,000 to 7,000, and so on. But that initially has been done with whatever the interest rate is that the city uses for the borrowing plus 1%. This won't necessarily be that same case there because we're not going to be borrowing to do this work. So that'd be another discussion point there that Kyle could touch on as well. But that's just, I'll leave it open to conversation kind of from there, and see if anybody's got any initial comments.
Mayor Tom?
I guess I don't really have any idea of the fiscal impact when you take, I think that's just under 36 miles of sidewalk, and break that into 5 years of what type of number we're looking at. And I'm sure that probably varies from different sections of the city on how many bad panels you have, but that's kind of what I can't wrap my head around. Are we talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars to start this project, or $50,000 annually if the city was paying for it or had to finance it up front? Do you have any idea?
And I don't. I think what I would recommend there is to have a group like Safe Step come out and say, okay, this is year 1. I want you guys to walk all of this sidewalk and give me the cost to replace all of this, and that'll give us a starting off point. That could still be done this fall to get a budget number put in place for the 21 budget, if council decides to move forward with something like that and shows interest in that. Because I would be willing to bet year 1 is really going to be one of the bigger ones as well, because it is the old part of town and there is a lot of deferred maintenance in that section. So I can't give you that number. I do fear it might be pretty large, but.
Okay. But as you said, if we needed to, we could call this a 10-year plan if we wanted to make it more digestible, but to have a plan.
Correct.
I guess the other kind of overarching theme that I'd like to see happen here is, depending upon where the financing comes from, is let's create a sustainable fund. You know, if this is money that I think the council has been pretty good about addressing pedestrian safety issues and putting money away the last couple of years, and like you said, it's been used on grinding, et cetera. But if we could come up with some sort of plan where if we put money in the budget and then the homeowner is responsible for paying that back over time, and it's all going into that fund, after a while, you know, we may not have to budget as much money because it's the money's going back into the same fund. So otherwise, we're constantly fighting for more money, and you know, the sidewalks fall in with everything else, every other priority, every budget, and then you take a year off of a 10-year plan, and then we forget about what we were trying to do. So
Yeah, and Kyle and I have discussed that, you know, creating that separate fund there that with that borrowing rate would eventually sustain itself.
yeah.
I just have a comment. Maybe it's off topic, but it's related enough. I know this is addressing sidewalk repair. And as the map shows here, the little red going past On River Road, it stops at a certain residence. And then, Kestrel Ridge Apartments has a sidewalk that goes north to nowhere, and it seemed like, I'm just wondering, is there any possibility of the connectivity, we were talking about that in Plan Commission as well, making the city walkable, and once you're on the sidewalk, then you have to either double back, go to the driveway and then on the street, or go on grass, which in and of itself does not make it very walkability.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I believe I know which area you're talking about there on River Road, but
Like right in front of Larson House, does not have sidewalk.
Okay. Yeah, that would actually become that sidewalks in that instance would become a council decision. Council has the authority to require a sidewalk to be installed. So that is a discussion that could be had here.
Thank you.
Kyle?
To the last point, yes, I think the council could make that a priority, but for sake of discussion, I think this policy would be separate from that. That would be its own thing. This would be just that the repair and replacement, which is kind of a persistent, ongoing thing that I think every community struggles with to some point. I think the concept of almost without creating a utility, but creating a designated fund might not be a horrible idea. Right now, we have over $30,000 this year set aside for sidewalks. And if we did that for 5 years, that's over $150,000. And if you'd be lending that money out and receiving it back by special assessment, you'd create sort of a rolling balance there that you would always have available. And after 5 or 6 years, maybe you don't have to put any new city money in. Maybe it's just rolling on itself from the special assessment collections plus a little inflation through interest. If we're not going to borrow for it, we do have to determine an interest rate. And so that's a consideration we'll have to come up with, not a complicated one. But I would hope we would get to a point where we don't have to borrow. I would be more in favor of a tiered approach over 5 years versus let's do the whole city all at once and go borrow the large sum of money. But either way is doable. But I do like the concept of having that segregated area where those funds are just sidewalk funds and we don't have those short-term budget pressures to stop doing the sidewalk improvements or get to year 3 on a 5-year plan and then figure out we want to go a different direction. So I would support that kind of concept.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a great idea personally. I guess my only concern is that I know that a lot of these streets in the center, in the blue area, which is indicated as year 1, they certainly, a lot of them need overall repair, reconstruction. So I guess my only concern is that if we decide, hey, we're going to go ahead and replace all the sidewalks on School Street, and then 2 years from now, School Street gets completely reconstructed and those sidewalks either have to be ripped out or whatnot. As much as an advocate I am for the, safer route to school routes and having those safe sidewalks on and near the school, I just wanted to recognize that those street projects would be looming as well.
I think that's a wise comment, and we've talked about it a little bit, and I think there's a couple ways you can handle it. One way would be to, as you replace the sidewalk, if there's no impending project in the next year, we generally know what we have coming up immediately. But say that you replace a sidewalk at a homeowner's expense, 4 years, and then you do the whole area and replace the sidewalk. I think you just kind of acknowledge that if they paid for a new sidewalk in the past X number of years, they don't get charged a special assessment for that sidewalk when it goes back in. And that's kind of a fair compromise, it seems like to me, in that you're not double charging someone for work.
I guess it's not necessarily my concern that we're not double charging them. I would hope that we wouldn't, but it's also, I think, on a fiscal prudence, just on the city's side.
Yeah, the complicated part is sort of the liability reduction.
Right.
And so if the road's 5 years from being, done, and 5 years from the sidewalks being done, or even 2 years, there's some amount of question on, how long do you let that liability exist before you take care of it? And, those are not easy questions because we don't have unlimited dollars to go around. But I think with, DPW and engineering staff and myself, we're gonna be very cognizant of what we're doing and what's kind of coming through in the next several years, so we can hopefully avoid that to the largest extent possible.
Thank you, Kyle. Mayor Tom?
I think getting some language in the policy itself that reflects that, reimbursable expenses and just set a time limit, I guess, whether it's 5 years or whatever it is, because I think if we had a magic ball and we knew the order of every street that's gonna get reconstructed, life would be much easier for us. But that can change from time to time, so I think we should have some verbiage in the policy about that people aren't getting overcharged. What is the expected life of a panel of sidewalk? I mean, there's probably sidewalk panels in the community that are 100 years old. My larger concern, I guess, is I think what we're trying to do is implement safety for pedestrians, which is ADA compliance. There's probably a lot of sidewalks in the community that are only 4 feet wide or maybe even less. And I think when we've done reconstruction projects, we've done kind of a cost sharing in certain instances because the sidewalk's usable, but it's not up to today's standards. And so, the city is going to invest a little bit into that. And I do think that the ramps on the corners should be a city expense personally, because I think that's an ADA issue that I think that we should be paying for and not push on the homeowner that lives on that corner. So I think that there's some of that to be considered as well when we're picking these neighborhoods and looking at them. If you've got 4-foot sidewalks and you're replacing them with 4-foot panels, they're really not that compliant with ADA, so how long are they going to be there for? But I think we need to recognize that in the policy to some extent too. And also kind of run this in line with the ordinance, which states that sidewalks are required to be installed, on all properties, and that they should be paid for by the property owner and maintained by the property owner. So I think we kind of we can't meander too far from that, but I think we can have certain parameters in the policy that would allow for cost sharing on certain instances or repayment if those sidewalks aren't there for a certain amount of time. So.
I guess the other concern is then, Zach mentioned a lot of trees and causing issues with the sidewalks. And I know in that first year, that first area there's a lot of that happening. And obviously, if we were to move ahead with any kind of street projects within the next few years in that blue area, I would imagine there'd be quite a bit of tree removal that would have to be done anyways. So, I guess, but it's hard for me to imagine, a total number, because that seems like a lot of trees and a lot of sidewalk that would be replaced. So, I guess, as council, what are your feelings? Would you like to, I guess, with Zach's suggestion, move forward and have a company possibly come in and get some evaluation started? Or whether this is a plan that we decide to take on for 5 years or 10 years or whatever, meet in the middle and say 7.5 years, I don't know.
I think maybe after you see that first number, that'll kind of give you that better idea to say, okay, we got to break that 1 and 2, so we're going to make this a 10-year plan versus 5, or say, okay, yeah, I think we can suck that one up and get this done and do it 5-year. Because if you get on a 5-year rotation, it's not going to be more than 10 years and all your sidewalks are going to look great.
Yeah, I would agree.
But even on a 10-year rotation, it's I think what you're going to find is that a year or two into it, you're going to find a lot more residents that are proactive about the work being done, and they'll just go do it because they've got somebody who can do it for a better price, or they want it done by somebody they know.
Sure. Seeing a lot of shaking heads. Mayor Tom?
One question is the parameters you put in here for repair or replace, is that just kind of standard template that you found that other communities are using as far as how bad the panels are, et cetera?
Yep, so that's the parameters we used with Safe Step last year for grinding.
Okay.
That's if they're going around, they mark whether it's going to be ground or it needs to be replaced, and then they give me, before they do any of that work, they give me the list so that I can do a walkthrough and confirm that it is indeed what they marked it as, and if there's anything that I want to change on any certain areas, they give you that opportunity to do so.
Does that mean that if we adopt this policy or this plan, that are we still going to utilize the grinding as well and not just panel replacement?
Yes, so I would still envision utilizing the grinding. I am looking into the mud jacking. I'm not as sold on mud jacking to raise panels, because if there's a base issue, and you're not going to break it up to find out what that issue is, I don't really envision that's truly that long of a solution. Whether it's because there's a utility underneath that sidewalk and there's an open trench that you can't see, or there's just a poor base altogether. It might look good for a couple of years, but I would envision that sinking further. The same can be argued with a grinding in a tree stump. If that root is continuing to grow, it might keep pushing that square up, but it's easier than just to say, okay, well, you can't grind it again, so we're done with it, versus, well, we're going to try to mud jack it. But I am meeting with a mud jack group tomorrow, actually, just to kind of get their pitch on it, because I've never had any experience with a group like that.
Okay. It might be good to have, several different tools to use as well, because I think some of the concerns are is if we start getting into these older neighborhoods where, we've got a liability and there's a lot of issues, but we don't necessarily want to repair all the sidewalks because we're going to have new sidewalks in the next 10 years that
Right.
do something inexpensive to get rid of the really bad areas by grinding or mud jacking or something that's cheaper than panel replacement. So,
Right, absolutely.
yeah, I like this. I think just getting a policy adopted and looking at whether it's 5 years or 10 years or whatever it is, and working through the budget to have the funding there, this is a very good start. So,
I agree. Any other questions or comments for Zach? Is everybody okay moving forward and at least exploring the options from getting a survey done?
well, I guess one concern about that is, how do we get that information without bringing liability to ourselves? I mean, I kind of heard when we were talking about Safe Step is when you start taking inventory of liabilities that are sidewalks. How do we navigate that, I guess, when we're not really looking at individual, here, show me a picture of the sidewalk, but what is the amount? Is Safe Step a vendor that can provide us kind of an inventory? Does that go to staff and staff gives us a dollar amount? I'm just concerned about how we navigate that conversation.
So, just to clear, so you're concerned about the liability that falls on the city once we're aware of the issue?
Yeah.
That's a look to Mr. Johnson for that one.
Okay.
See what he's got, if he has any input there. I know that was kind of his initial input when we talked about this last year. I've heard different opinions from different people. Obviously, we've got to lean on our lawyer here and what we're given. But that's something we might have to navigate a little bit.
Okay. I think I'd leave it up to staff to have that discussion on how we get the money, so we can kind of formulate that policy and how long it's going to take us to get through it.
Okay. So, I guess, Zach, your direction is then just so working with Safe Step, they would provide us, I guess, with the initial steps to get
Yep.
something like this started.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Thank you. That's perfect. Okay. Zach is hanging out with us for number 7 as well, which is review and discuss transferring of the title of Fireman's Park Ball Field to the school district.
So last year, every year the school district and the city meets to review the facilities shared use agreement. And at that meeting, it was brought up by the school district that there would be interest in that from the school district of them kind of having the ball field, and it didn't really make sense for the city to maintain it all the time and keep up with it, seeing as we really don't use it. It's used for high school football, high school baseball, and a little bit of summer baseball. But we are in charge of the entire facility, all of its maintenance, and even the little things like keeping it mowed. So after a year of observing the field use and continued discussion with the school district this year, we've come to the conclusion that transferring the field to the Columbus School District makes sense for both parties. It's been found the primary uses of this field lies within the Columbus School District. The only city-related use on the field is for U14 baseball and crawdads, which is overseen by City of Columbus Rec Department and brings in less than $1,000 in revenue each year. And the Columbus 4th of July Committee to light off fireworks. If this transfers of sale took place, it would also mean reduced annual maintenance efforts as well as long-term facilities maintenance by the City of Columbus. For the school district, it means control over the facility that they use for high school baseball, high school football, and its other user groups. It also means improving coordination when multiple sports and events are trying to coordinate practices and games. Very prevalent right now when we're trying to talk about having a spring football season. If that's what, there's all these different, with COVID, there's so many different options being floated, and when you have a field that's used for baseball and football, that's going to put a real kink in high school athletics this year. So for the school district just to be able to say, hey, this is our field and we're going to figure it out, instead of having the third party involved, we're just kind of here and let us know what's going on and we'll accommodate best we can. So the school district and the City of Columbus have worked well together under the current shared use agreement, but we've come to realize that this transfer would make more sense for both groups. In this transfer, the following would be included: continued shared use agreement for other shared spaces, including the school gymnasiums and the city tennis courts and softball fields at Meister Park. City of Columbus retains first right to purchase the property at the price it was sold to the school district if the district ever chooses to sell the property. 4th of July Committee retains the right to use the field for fireworks until or if it's turned into a turf field. Columbus School District will create a new field for joint rec use if this one is ever repurposed. The City of Columbus would maintain an easement for the path behind the bleachers around to the city pool, and an easement for access to the Second Ward Creek. And then the last one that I put in there was just maybe a piece for discussion is the field being open to the public when sports are not in season. Because of its location, there is a lot of just kids hop out there to go take batting practice or just play around the ball field. They might be at the batting cage next to the ball field and just want to go play in the field. I don't know that would be an issue with the school district. It was just something that that just kind of long-term idea. There are school districts where you're not really allowed on the fields unless you've got a prior permit or whatever you want to call it. And I just would, because of the location of this, I think that would be an important part to have a discussion with the school district about that and make sure they're aware of that concern. So in here you will see the current piece of property. This current piece of property was purchased at a separate time from the rest of the park there. So the park's just never been redrawn. So what we would do here is draw out what I have in red in the baseball field and then redraw Fireman's Park to be one big piece of property. And that would be just the part in red which is what would be transferred to the school there. So that would be the two buildings, or sorry, the one building, which is the red shed, the score shed, the dugouts. There's a few sets of bleachers in there, the field lights, and the bleachers, which are up for the football, which are already to schools. So my recommendation would be to transfer this to the school district for $1 and go from there.
Any questions or concerns immediately for Zach? Kyle wanted to chime in here.
I just wanted to add, we had a discussion on Friday at the DT meeting, and it was after the packets were printed. We've checked the ownership and the deed, and there's nothing that indicates right now that this is any sort of property that has any obligation to remain owned by the city or only used by the city. But Paul also mentioned that doesn't mean that there doesn't exist one somewhere in someone's basement or in a law office or in a time capsule somewhere. And so we could accomplish the same thing with a long-term lease as well, like a 99-year lease where they assume all maintenance rights, or obligations, I should say. They get the same rights, and we can still accomplish that. So if there are concerns about losing ownership and then eventually not knowing what will ultimately happen to it, if they would then sell it for who knows what, we can accomplish basically the same thing with a long-term lease, and I think Paul might be ready to talk about that too.
Okay.
Yeah, my concern with this whole thing is that there are prohibitions on the city transferring property if the city acquired it for a specific purpose. The best examples are if you see a plat where it's dedicated for streets or dedicated to the public or dedicated for stormwater purposes, or if the deed said that this property is being given to the city for purposes of improving Fireman's Park or something like that. If the city were to quote unquote sell land contrary to the purpose it received it for, then the property is supposed to revert back to the original owner. In this situation, the deed, we found the deed from I think it was 1927, if I remember right. The deed is completely silent as to how the city is getting it. The city actually purchased it. It was an outright purchase. But there was no specific intent as to what it was being used for. So that's all good in favor of being able to convey it. I just get a little bit nervous because none of us were here when that happened, so we don't really know. Of course, the previous owner is dead, so, and most likely his family members are also passed. So it's not a high risk, it's just something I need to point out.
Any comments? Mayor Tom?
And I appreciate Paul's comments as well. I think it gets us to the same place. The notes that I had written on here was, I don't know enough about the history here, but regardless of what this conversation was going to include tonight, is that we just table this back for another committee of the whole, because we may hear from somebody to go, hey, did you know this part of the history now that we're talking about it, that we don't really need to do this very quickly, but I like that Paul mentioned that alternative in there, because I think that's, it accomplishes the same thing. And I don't know legally, drawing up a lease agreement versus doing a title search and a transfer, if there's additional expenses of doing it that way as well. So I like Paul's suggestion, and I think regardless of what we do, we should just bring this back to the committee of the whole, see if there's any comments or updates from the community or new history that we didn't know about.
And just one thing to add, I agree that it is not a huge hurry, but the school district is more or less interested in discussion now while they're working on all their grand plans with their referendum, and because now it's just a point of discussion for them, so it kind of works in coordinates with what they've got going on.
I think the point that you brought up, that we should discuss with them, I guess, the field use agreement and see what their expectations would be, just because of, I think you're correct, in the location that it's in, you're going to have people out there, and people in the community are certainly used to being able to get out there and use it for recreation purposes. So I think that that's a good point, and we should have further discussion on that. So I don't know if we should reach out directly, or direct staff to reach out directly and sort of ask that question for when we come back, or if we want to have an open discussion at a meeting with them specifically, or what the council wants to do. But Trina.
Oh, I'm just really liking Paul's suggestion. I feel like that would give the city a little more control in having the field more available for community use.
Yeah, and just as a background, so kind of the discussions we've had with the school district is that we were going to bring this forward to committee of the whole, see how discussions went, and then they would look at bringing it to their board as well, so that they could maybe both kind of shake out the different little nuances that we find in it and what concerns there might be, and then sit down at the drawing board again.
Okay. Mayor Tom.
Just one last comment, I guess, just because, we're dealing with COVID right now. None of us ever dreamed that this was going to happen, but I know that has created a lot of issues where the schools were closed, you couldn't be on a school field, et cetera, and then there were kids that were practicing on city fields kind of on their own without coaches. So it's those little things that I think we need to kind of make sure, expect the unexpected in any agreement that we do with them. And I think using a lease type of agreement, we can get more specific language in there rather than transferring it. We're gonna have to have some sort of agreement to have unknowns in there. But I think that COVID is a really good example of that, is that once it becomes a school property, and if there's some sort of issue like this again, we may not know. Our joint use agreement may not be in effect because it's owned by the school at that point, so. But yeah, I think we should, if we can have any communication between now and the next cow, pick up the conversation and see if we've learned anything new since then. But I'm in favor of the transfer. I mean, I see no reason for us to be expending maintenance costs and bleachers and lights and things when we're not really using them as a city. It's obviously part of, the schools using it. It's pretty clear, so.
I agree. Okay, thanks, Zach. I'm just gonna move that one forward to the next cow, if possible. We're gonna move on then to number 8, which is review and discuss the Wisconsin DNR Urban Forestry Grant, and for that, we also have Zach Navin again.
Making sure you get good use out of me the next month here.
That's right.
So the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources has an annual urban forestry grant that municipalities and other nonprofits can apply for to support projects that improve a community's capacity to manage its trees. The city of Columbus has not applied for this grant since 2015. At that time, the city applied for funds to get an urban forestry management plan in place and was awarded $25,000 towards this project. This year, with this program, there is an additional $175,000 available from the USDA Forest Service to assist communities in the response to the catastrophic loss of urban tree canopy due to the emerald ash borer. The city of Columbus has approximately 130 standing ash trees in the city right away. These trees are upwards of $100,000 to remove. Therefore, city staff would like to apply for this grant to help remove trees affected by the emerald ash borer and plant new trees in their place. There is also an educational aspect to the grant, as it will provide funds for the staff to attend the Wisconsin Community Tree Management Institute. The important part of this grant that I've learned is to make it as multifaceted as possible. So not just removals, not just planting, not just educational. You know, as I write this out, it'll be that we're gonna do a little bit of everything so that we're improving the plan as a whole, and we're not just, oh yeah, we've got rid of all the ash trees, we're good now. You know, let's look at the future and how we can avoid issues like this to come. So these grants range from $1,000 to $25,000 and require a 50-50 match. Total project cost range is $2,000 to $50,000. The project sponsor must initially fund 100% of the project costs with cash-in-kind contributions and/or donations. Upon completion, the project sponsor requests reimbursement for 50% of eligible costs. So if we get the work done at the end of April and you submit all your paperwork, you could have the funds back in 60 days. So it could all be done within a budget cycle. So the recommendation here is, in order for staff to apply for this grant, a resolution needs to be passed stating that the city will budget sufficient funds to fully complete the proposed project. Staff recommends approval of the resolution. Once it's reviewed and approved, staff will come back to the 9/15/20 meeting with proposed budget numbers for this grant. So really just right now looking to get the resolution moved forward, because that has to be part of the grant, is that there was an approved resolution. This grant is due October 1st, so I do look to have this completed before my departure. And just to give you an idea, if we can get up to $25,000 in funds, it's easy to show that we have the money in removals alone, but like I said, we want to make this multifaceted, so we'll have $50,000 for removals, and probably $40,000 of that would go towards EAB work. We do need to keep funds in that account for storm damage or other trees that become a concern. You know, we do have other trees that are dead or dying for other reasons that need to be addressed as well. And then we'd put about $8,000 in for planting and another $2,000 for training, which would put us well and above that required number to get that full $25,000 grant. And we would find out how we do on this application by mid to late November, so that we can budget properly for 21.
Trina.
Oh, so I was so excited at first when I read the background information saying that Columbus had been granted 25,000 5 years ago, and that the next sentence was this year an additional 175,000 available. And I was like, yes, a $200,000 grant. But that's the total amount from the pool, not
Correct.
the,
Yeah, we'd have a shot at that
Yeah.
numbers.
So we might be able to get the 25,000 again.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Sorry to disappoint you there.
Mayor Tome.
Just for clarification, we'll need to bring the resolution forward for approval at the next regular meeting.
Correct.
And then at that meeting, are you going to need the council
At that meeting, we don't
approve?
need to have budget numbers figured out. We only need the resolution part of it.
Okay.
As far as the budget part of it goes, that'll just kind of come forward. And after I wrote this memo and it was submitted to Pat, I had kind of just walked through the numbers with Kyle. So we may not necessarily come back with any other numbers other than what I've got here as the generals. The rest will get worked out in the budget process with Kyle and Bob, and they'll get that appropriate based on what we receive. You know, just because we apply for all of it, we still might get some of it, but not all of what we asked for.
Just checking procedurally on how many, if the resolution gets the whole motion going, and want to make sure we have things
Yep.
wrapped up and kind of some clarity before you're gone. So.
Yep.
So the next step would be bringing the resolution forward to the next meeting then?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Kyle, did you want to?
Yes, and Zach and I did talk about this, and we're bringing it forward with confidence that we can fit this in the budget. We already have a pretty substantial contribution that we have been planning year over year for removals and plantings. And so incorporating this, it's going to be a much larger number in that column, but it's going to be offset by a much larger grant number. If the council would like to do this, we can accommodate it. And 2 weeks from today, you'll be receiving your first draft budget. And I just would be planning on putting it in there if the consensus is that we'd like to continue moving forward on this.
Okay. Sounds good. I guess we will see that at our next agenda. Seeing a lot of shaking heads. Okay. Thanks, Zach. I think you can sit down now. Moving on, we've got number 9, review and discuss the crop lease renewal with Hine Farms. You have information in your packet, and Matt Schreiber is going to come up and chat with us about this lease. Could you turn your mic on, Matt? Sorry.
Sorry,
Thank
I
you.
thought it was on. So Steve Hine from Hine Farms reached out to the city recently, asking to renew his lease, or the status of his lease expired in March of 2021. And he was planning ahead. He wants to do some work this fall, but he doesn't want to do work this fall unless there's some sort of assurance that his lease is renewed. So I told him that I would bring this to council for their review. At the moment, really, we don't have any other better uses for the property. I would note most of it is either wetlands or the 500-year floodplain. One of the things that we talked about on a staff level is that really there's no standard sort of long termination language. And we thought, after what we went through, especially with the Butterfly Trails Volunteer Park, just to try to work through that with Sendview Farms, that maybe it would make sense to have some sort of termination language, something that would be probably long-term notice. So any investment that any farmer that we're working with that renting out the land would have plenty of notice to basically minimize any sort of loss that they would receive from not renewing the lease. We've talked a couple different ways to do it. Another option was an annual lease that's automatically renewals. But really, that's the one item, I guess, I want council discussion on. I think the other items for the lease are fairly straightforward. The lease is basically the previous lease and updated with the dates and times. That was kind of standard with the lease previously, because previously it ran from 2016 to 2021. So
Mayor Tome.
I guess I would ask Attorney Johnson what his opinion is it easy to get, just add language into this 5-year agreement in the event we need to end the lease, or do an annual automatic renewal with some sort of a date where we can give notice to say we'd like to terminate that lease? Is one way easier or harder?
I think there are pluses and minuses to doing it each way. Historically, the Heinz have had a 5-year lease, and there's been no out clause for the city. When this lease first started, the city had to beg somebody to farm this land, basically, which is how we got to where we are right now. If you go with a 5-year lease and you put an out clause in, I don't think, and trying to put myself in the farmer's position here for a minute here, that's probably being beneficial to the farmer because he knows that he has the use of the land for 5 years, but at the same time, he also knows that the city can pull it out from under him at any time. So that's one issue. And the second issue is that if the city does exercise the termination clause, what's the proper payment for the crop that might be on the field? I mean, how exactly do you give him until the end of the crop year so he can get it off, or do you just say, here's your 60-day notice, too bad, and here's the amount of money that you paid us, so we're giving that back to you, and your crop is gone. I mean, those are all variations. If you do the 1-year lease with automatic renewal, the farmer has less assurance of the long term, but it's a lot easier for the city to get out, and there's less to worry about as far as repaying the farmer for a crop, because you would just terminate it at the end of the lease term every year, and then you don't have to worry about a farmer losing a crop. And then your third option is to simply do a 1-year lease with no automatic renewal, and every year have this conversation to see what you want to do for the next year. That will get tired really fast for both sides, I would think. I guess, I don't really have a preference. That's your call. We can certainly draft it either way, whatever you decide.
I don't know which way either. I think I don't think it would be our intent to kick a farmer off of the leased land with a crop on it, but, every farmer probably has different things they farm. I don't know what's out there currently, if it's just corn, but then if someone starts farming winter wheat and you're trying to end the lease, but there's constantly a crop on it, do we just add language in there to specify the growing season, I guess, or that we have that window to terminate the agreement between growing seasons or something to that extent? I don't know.
During the conversation we had, I also thought of a long, if we were going to do the 1-year auto renewing, to have a somewhat long notification period of, by May 1st, we're going to let you know that the January 1 to December 31 lease is not going to be renewed. So you would know early on in the year. Most crops aren't longer than that. So you could plan accordingly, and there'd be some protection for the farmer, because the intent of this is not to, again, take a crop or something like that and not compensate them. This is not to lock the city into a long-term agreement when we might identify another use, and if there's no out, we'd be stuck with it for potentially 5 years of waiting with no option to get out.
I like your option of having a very long window to notify them, because I don't think that the city would just come up with a possible new use and say, here, we're going to do this in 2 months or 6 months or a year. There'd be enough planning required that we would know well enough in advance. But I think that's a good option, is to make sure that we have a very long period notification requirement for the farmer.
I guess I just have a question for Matt and your communication with them at all. I mean, do you feel like if we put in any clause that they're going to sort of back off and just say, nope, we're not going to do this work, we're not going to continue to farm this land? Like the attorney has suggested that the city basically begged for somebody to farm this land in the first place? So do you think that this, if we
I
do
do
that,
not know.
guess what's your-
Before I went to them, I wanted to make sure council
Yeah.
supported that concept. So, I mean, I could call him first thing tomorrow and discuss it with him.
I guess that's my concern, is just that if he backs out, and that's,
I just sent to piggyback off of Katie's comment. I'm good at math, but I can't do it this quickly here. If they did pull the plug, how much dollars are we out? Are we out, is that like $2,600?
1,640.
Okay. It's right in front of me and I couldn't even see it.
right. Trina?
Yes, I'm just wondering about the, I guess, quality of the land. Would it be considered buildable if someone were to come by with interest? I guess, 16 or so acres in bright green on the map?
There's, well, the two areas in bright green are not considered to be in the floodplain or the wetlands. The big issue then is access. Right now, Hind Farms has access through the end of Continental Drive as a private crossing of the Canadian Pacific Railroad, excuse me. If we were putting something back there and there was going to be more traffic crossing the railroad, I think we would have a much more difficult time convincing Canadian Pacific to access that area. But, you know, over time, wetlands do change. Just because it's classified as a wetland now doesn't mean somebody with the resources couldn't make this area more developable than it is currently on paper.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering if there was a possibility of putting up a simple railroad crossing, and I don't know what kind of industry would want to enjoy the land. I just dislike continuously committing to 5 years and being a little stuck, and then possibly the city owing quite a bit of money to get out of it.
Kyle?
Just two things. Number one being, I think there are buildable areas here, and for the right project, no obstacle is insurmountable. I've seen things that are unbuildable, people build on them with the right amount of resources put to it. And then the second thing is about the farmer, and we probably did have difficulty getting farmers to be interested because access is kind of unique in that area. It's this big farmed area, I believe, is farmed by the same farmer. So there's some convenience for them. But I also think the rate that we're leasing it at is significantly lower than a market rate. So the rate itself is serving as some sort of attractiveness in this offer. And I don't think they'll find 16 acres somewhere else for cheaper that they can farm.
Any other discussion points? I guess my only other question, Matt, is when he says he's got work he wants to do to the land, is he just? Oh, okay. So just general.
If this went back to the cow in September, I think there's still plenty of time for a decision to be made.
Okay. I would say, what's the will of the council? Do we want the termination to be, like Matt suggested? I think it was, what do you say, January to, I'm sorry, maybe it was Kyle. May to January type of thing. So whatever crop might be growing there at that specific time, there'd be plenty of time for them to harvest.
I like whatever Kyle had mentioned, just having a very long notification period annually.
Yeah.
And that we would allow them to get their crop off of there if we needed to terminate the lease by the end of the year, which would be, December 31st. Is that correct? Is that how it rotates right now? It's annual?
Yeah, it's annual.
Okay.
So are we saying that we would do a 1-year auto renewing lease with basically the notice of non-renewal having to occur on or before May 1st of the year of the contract?
I like that idea. I think that's giving a lot of notice, and then it's annual. And, I mean, if we run that by them and they turn their nose up at it, I guess we can maybe continue to talk about it, but again, it's
I agree.
$1,600 a year, so.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Matt. Okay, so we got number 10, which is review and discuss solar array ordinance. We have Mr. Matt Schreiber still with us for this item.
All right, so this is one with, when we collaborated recently with Water and Light on their solar array project, one of the things that, as the zoning administrator, looking through our codes, how our codes actually apply to solar arrays and solar installations. And after some discussion, we thought that an ordinance to help clarify how solar arrays can be installed in the city would be helpful to my position. So based on that conversation, our city attorney had a draft ordinance that he worked on in another community. And he prepared a draft ordinance that you see before you tonight. Based off our last meeting, when we talked about the site plan ordinance, we determined that having an ordinance come to the COW first, then to a committee or commission for review, then back to the council for final approval was the preferred method. So essentially what would happen, assuming that council supports this ordinance tonight, it would go to plan commission for further review in a public hearing, because this would be under the zoning code. So it would have a public hearing at plan commission on the 8th of October, and then on the 20th, it would go back to the council for final approval.
Okay. That sounds great to me. Mayor Tome?
Only
don't know who
question
was
I have,
first.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Only question I had for Paul was, it sounds like he's used this in another community, but under the definition of small solar energy system is designed for a single residential, commercial, or industrial property. I guess when I think about that, a small solar system for an industrial property is going to look a lot different than for a single residential. But does that kind of get dealt with in the rest of the zoning code here? We can't hear you, Paul, sorry.
No, still can't.
There, sorry.
There we go.
Oh, there you go.
If you look in section 3 of the ordinance, or paragraph 3 there, it says for commercial industrial zone districts, it has to comply with height limits and side and rear yard setbacks for accessory structures, so that's the framework of how big it's going to be.
Okay. Because those setbacks are going to be different for residential versus an industrial property. Okay, that makes sense.
Exactly,
Great.
exactly, and if you wanted to deviate from what those setbacks are, then you still have the variance procedure if necessary.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I like that we're dealing with this proactively. I'm fine with moving it forward for consideration at the next meeting, too.
Trina?
Oh, let's see. Overall, I'm joyous to see an ordinance going in about some solar power. Very excellent. My only concern is subsection 5 under section 1. That wasn't very clear. But it's a part where no person in control of a property shall allow a tree or shrub to be placed or grow so as to cast a shadow between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. It ends with the provisions of this paragraph shall not require moving of existing vegetation. I'm just trying to figure out what kind of language we would put in for someone whose pre-existing tree keeps growing. how does that wind up shaking out?
I'm looking at Paul.
Oh,
If the person who's putting the solar panel in is looking at the lay of his land right now and sees a 2-inch tree in the ground, he knows in 15 years or so he's gonna have a problem. That's why it's, that's why it doesn't require the removal of existing vegetation. So if the tree's there first, the tree wins. And if the person puts the solar panel in and then somebody puts a tree in, then the tree loses.
okay. So I guess a 2-inch tree, I don't know if you would notice, but like one of those little helicopter things flies off my maple tree and
Well, it'll take an awful long time for that little helicopter to turn into a tree that's gonna bother a solar.
that's true. That's true. So, but in any event, does that answer your question well enough, Tina? Trina? Okay.
Basically, the language is designed for the people who aren't very neighborly.
Yep. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm fine with this moving forward then to Plan Commission and then coming back to us for final approval. Thank you, Matt. Oh,
I'm sorry,
Paul.
I just,
Just one question.
as Paul said, neighborly, are we saying no person control of the property shall, so if you're the neighbor, could you put your tree where it interferes with that solar array, or are we talking about the owner of the property that the solar array's on? Because if I wanted to be, a not friendly neighbor, I could plant a small 2-inch thing and, it's not affecting my solar, it's affecting the neighbor. So, I mean, are we saying,
That's what he's, yeah.
that's what you're saying?
That's what
Okay,
it's
okay.
This is designed to give the solar panel owner the ability to go next door and say, move your tree, please.
Okay, thank you.
And I think the reason why it says person in control of a property is instead of owner of a property, because it also covers rentals or whatnot, whoever might be
Exactly.
in control of that property. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Matt. Number 11, review and discuss resolution number 15-20, exemption from the Columbia County library tax for 2021. Kyle's going to lead us off on this one, and this is an annual thing.
Yes, so this is an annual thing. The county does levy a library tax, and they levy it across municipalities and government organizations that don't support their own libraries to a minimum level. Our contribution to our library far exceeds the minimum threshold, so we need to do this so that we're not double taxed by the county because we're already contributing to ours. Dodge County will also have one. It's a $0 one because we don't have any assessed value in Dodge. It came over the weekend, so it didn't make the packet. And if the council was okay with it, we would just include it for approval with this Columbia County Library Tax Exemption Resolution at the next meeting. It's a formality that basically gets us out of additional taxes, so it's pretty much all positive.
I was going to ask that question because the memo was different than the agenda item, but yes, please and thank you. If we can have both of them and you approve them at
Yeah.
once, it makes
Yes.
sense. Yep, it's just housekeeping.
Okay, sounds pretty straightforward, okay. Thank you, Kyle. Number 12 is review and discuss proposed CAEMS contract for EMS service. And it looks like Kyle's actually going to lead us off on this one as well.
Yes, so the CAEMS is our intra-governmental organization that was formed a number of years ago to provide EMS services across the area. And for the last several years, the contract for the group has been with Lifestar Emergency Medical Services. And the contract is going to be expiring at the end of this year. They did, in the past year, experiment with adding Reeseville and Lowell. And there was concern at the time about what that was going to do to our response times and if this was going to overtax the amount of service they had available. That has not proven to be the case at this point. It's something I think we'll continue to keep an eye on, because as populations continue to grow, so will the calls likely. But for the kind of the trial portion of this year, it's been going well. The other communities are relatively small and don't add a lot of call volume. So the CA EMS group is recommending, we're going to be discussing it actually tomorrow in the evening, but the recommendation is to continue a contract with Lifestar. And the goal of me bringing this to you at this point is to see if there's any concerns you had with the contract, or anything between the intergovernmental agreement or the contract with Lifestar that I can bring to the meeting tomorrow. But they would be looking for a 5-year contract, and the contract amount is essentially staying the same, because with the addition of population, they're getting more calls, which means they get more billable revenue, and so it's actually worked out very well. And it appears next year we'll have thousands of dollars in savings from adding Lowell and Reeseville to the contract. So it's all very good news right now with this contract.
And within the agreement, this is whose updates in red are these? Are these from Lifestar themselves? These are the updates that they were requesting?
The Columbus Area EMS Group hired their own attorney, and so this is the attorney that's representing the intragovernmental group, and they worked with Lifestar to talk about some of the terms, and in some of the information in here, there was basically some language that was suggested by Lifestar that was rejected by the group's attorney. Like always, they want to be indemnified and things like that, and they want the group and all the municipalities to take more liability than they're legally required to take. And so a lot of that language got struck, and all you see in there proposed is language that our attorney as the group is comfortable with. As the city, being a member of the group, Paul should comment if he's got concerns that we should be bringing back to the group.
The only concern that I had with the Lifestar contract was in section 4, and it looks like there's paragraph C, D, and E there that need some additional language put in. Looks like they have headings, but no text that goes with it. Other than that, the changes that are in red, I didn't have any problems with those at all, and I agree with what the attorney for CAMS is doing. I didn't see anything there that was adverse to the city. And it will be, just as one more thing for Kyle, that fiscal effects if municipality leaves, that's starting to become a pretty big issue with these intergovernmental agreements. So that might be something we're talking about in your group.
Yeah, and I think with new members coming on board, it's an ideal time. They want in, and when they want in, now is the time to get the language that protects everybody from any group, including the city, leaving with little notice and leaving everyone else holding the bulk of the contract. So I think that will be a point of discussion tomorrow.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, otherwise I had no significant concerns.
Okay.
Do you anticipate that tomorrow the group is going to be able to kind of get through this contract then, Kyle, and that we would have this back for final approval within 2 weeks, or do you know what to expect?
I'm not sure that we're ready. We just got this late. It was over the weekend that this came in, and so I don't think a lot of people have had a lot of time to really delve into the details. So I anticipate there's going to be a lot of discussion, and then probably some huddling with our attorney and with Lifestar, and probably a regrouping. So I doubt that this will come back in 2 weeks, but definitely in time for budget consideration, which for us is going to be a positive if everything stays the way it is.
And this doesn't need to be completely approved by all the municipalities until the end of the year, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we've got time, good.
Okay.
So we'll be thorough and make sure that we've kind of got Paul's suggestions implemented into the draft before we adopt it. So I guess we'll see it come back to the committee of the whole when we've got some updates.
Sounds good. Thank you. So we'll see that back when it gets back to us. And they hatched out. So we're going to move on then to number 13, which is review and discuss the vacation of right-of-way for sections of South Spring Street and West Fountain Street for the Columbus Elementary School. I think Matt's going to head us off for us, and in my packet, I saw that initially, and I was like, wait, where? What? And I was just a little confused, and I didn't know there was a road going through the elementary school, but apparently there is. So, thank
Well,
you,
not a
Matt.
road, a right-of-way.
No, a right-of-way, sorry, yes.
That was originally platted for a road that was never built.
Correct.
So, as you stated, it's affecting the elementary school. So this is basically coming to council, basically from city staff, collaborating with the school district, but also the school district's project team for their for the referendum for the school project. The site that is the elementary school is made up of 10 parcels right now, and it's bisected by right-of-way for Spring Street and Fountain Street, excuse me, geez. Really to approve the zoning for the site when they build the addition onto the new elementary school, this is something that really needs to be done so they can combine the lot into either one or two parcels, so they can meet zoning setback requirements and other issues. The fact that this hasn't been vacated before is a little surprising, especially when you look at the exhibit where you see part of the school is actually in the city-owned right-of-way. So really, this is the first step for their process. Once they're done, they'll have to do a CSM to combine the parcels into one or two. If they want to have a separate parcel for the parking lot, I think they could do that. But right now, we prefer one if possible. And then they still need a conditional use permit by code to complete the addition that they have proposed for the elementary school. So I know I put in the, one other keynote is there's no utilities in the right-of-way. There's a storm sewer, I believe, that goes through part of the property, and that easement would be reflected on the CSM when the CSM is recorded. And we already have an existing easement, it just would be shown on the CSM. I know I put a process on there, but after discussion at DT on Friday, I realized I probably misunderstood Paul. So with that, it'll just be easier to kick it over to Paul to talk about the steps to actually vacate the right-of-way.
The process for doing the vacation is actually quite simple, but it takes about 2 months to get it done. At your meeting on September 15th, a resolution will be introduced by the council, assuming that you're willing to go forward with this, that says it's the city's intent to vacate the hatched portions of Fountain Street and Spring Street that are shown on the map in your packet. And that resolution will be introduced but not formalized on September 15th. After the resolution is introduced, then there is a 40-day waiting period in which you wait. And during that waiting period, the resolution gets served upon all of the abutting property owners of the right-of-way, which in this case is 2, the school district being 1, and the owner of that parcel number 5 that's right at the corner of Richmond Street and Spring Street, that's kind of sitting there all by itself. So those 2 property owners will be served with the resolution, and they have the opportunity to then come into a public hearing that'll be held by the council sometime after the 40 days has expired. Assuming there's no objections to doing all of this, the resolution will be finalized immediately after the public hearing, and the right-of-way will be gone. When the right-of-way is gone, the vacated parts of the right-of-way are given to the abutting landowners, which means that the school will end up being the owner of all of the vacated right-of-way, except for that little part that abuts the private landowner on the corner of Richmond and Spring. He will get the north half of that part of that street that abuts his property. And then that will, the final resolution gets recorded with the Register of Deeds office, and the issue is resolved.
Okay. Seems easy enough. I can wait 40 days. Mayor Tom?
Just for clarification, Paul, then, does the resolution get introduced at the committee of the whole in 2 weeks, or is there some action required at the regular meeting?
It'll be for the regular meeting.
Okay, all right, sounds good, thank you.
All right. Is that pretty clear to everybody? All right, very exciting stuff. Thank you, Matt. And for number 14, we are going to convene to close session per state statute 19.85 sub 1 sub E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting other public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically to discuss potential developments in the city of Columbus. So with that, I am looking for a motion and a second to move into closed session for the reasons stated.
Alder Piper will make a motion to convene into closed session as the reason stated.
Adams seconds.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to convene to closed session for the reasons read. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Pat, would you mind taking the roll call for me, please?
Adams,
Yeah, aye. What am I doing? Sorry.
We'll get through this.
McCabe.
Aye.
Piper Road,
Aye.
Reed. Ryan,
Aye.
Tom.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Pat. We are now in closed session. Yes, and we'll be signing off this evening.